Our office is seeing a trend in buyers contacting us for closings and they don't want to use a real estate agent. But in my experience, those buyers that decide to go it alone, more often than not, have a lot more troubles and hiccups in the experience. So unless you're an extremely savvy and experienced buyer, there's a lot that an agent can do to help you. So today I'm going to talk to you about how buyers are effectively working with real estate agents. First up, the passive buyer is out and the strategic buyer is in. So buyers are moving from the posture of just saying to an agent, help me find a house, I want 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, let's go for it, to saying, let me find a good investment, help me find a good investment. And they're thinking more strategically about what they want to buy and letting their agents know that up front. These buyers are looking at long-term trends, resale values, and not just what they need in the immediate moment. The next thing buyers are doing to work with their agents effectively is using technology and data early in the process rather than once they get under contract. So these buyers are working with their agents and they're saying, where are the infrastructure improvements coming? Where will there be more schools? Where are road improvements coming? Because they might use that as a predictor of home value increases. They're also looking at heat maps for insurance premiums, whether there are flood zones, all sorts of things that your typical, very popular home viewing website isn't necessarily going to tell you. And buyers are telling their agents very early on, I need to know what's in those restrictions. Good agents are finding this anyway or requesting it from the seller up front. But if you don't know exactly what home you want yet, but you know generally the neighborhood, you can find those restrictions online and your agent can help you do that so that you're reviewing the restrictions to rule out houses or neighborhoods where you perhaps maybe can't rent someday, or if you have a work truck and you're not allowed to have your work truck. That's all really important to know. So you don't want to find that you are in love with a certain neighborhood or a certain home and then you can't actually use it the way that you need to. The next thing buyers are doing is they are demanding a strategic partner from their agents and they are mastering non-price offer terms. And what I mean by that is they're looking at things like buyer possession before closing, seller possession after closing, understanding what makes up a good offer in terms of a due diligence fee if you're in North Carolina, or earnest money deposits. All of these things go into whether your offer will be accepted, and a good agent knows that and they'll help you guide them. But a buyer understands that those are the types of things that agents can bring to the table that if you're not savvy or experienced in buying a house, you just won't know. Now, this one is a pro tip for buyers, and really smart buyers understand that their agent is more than just a salesperson. They're effectively a project manager for the transaction because they know all of the players that have to help get the closing to the final stages, and they can help quarterback the process and make sure that everyone is doing what they need to do so that the closing will happen on time. Buyers who haven't done this before, they're not going to know exactly what should happen at what stage, and a really good agent does. So they can guide you through that, they can act as the project manager, and they can oversee that everything is going the way that it should be. And as part of being that project manager, your agent's going to be assigning you tasks, or the attorney's office or the lender, and following up with people to make sure the documents get where they need to go. So sometimes that means that your agent is on your case a little bit if you're dragging your feet on getting documents to the lender or returning information sheets to the attorney. But this is all part of what a good agent does to make sure that the transaction is as smooth as possible. And finally, buyers are working with their agents to understand that smooth closings are planned from day one. Often in my practice, I see that inexperienced buyers don't understand that closing isn't just something that happens when you come to sign your documents. A good agent helps a buyer understand that from the beginning to see that, 30, 45 days it takes to get everything needed for a closing and make sure that the buyer's making a good decision and that the lender can actually fund the loan and that there are no title issues, etc. So an agent can really help with this process by giving you checklists, giving you timelines, and helping you understand that smooth closing, making sure closing day is boring, which is exactly what you want, begins from day one and not on day 30 or on closing day. Look, I know why people are coming to me and saying that they want to try to handle this purchase process alone and they're hesitant to use an agent. And a lot of it has to do with the headlines of the past year from the NAR settlement, or things that they have heard that maybe someone else had a bad experience and their agent ghosted them. But it's just not my experience as a closing attorney who has done thousands of closings that buyers who do it alone have better outcomes. And in fact, it's usually the opposite, with the rare exception being that it's someone who's bought many, many properties over many, many years, and they know what has to happen and when, and they have the time to do it. If you are a new buyer who has a full-time job, maybe some kids that you've got to take care of or other obligations, and you are adding this to your plate, get ready for another full-time job. And it's not always that it will cost you more money to use an agent. The NAR Settlement, what it says is that you can't make sellers pay for a buyer's agent, but in North Carolina, that's always been true. So, a seller can still decide to pay for the buyer's real estate agent just like they have been able to in the past, but it's a negotiated outcome. And again, in North Carolina, that was always the case. Even as a real estate attorney, I use an agent when I am buying and selling property. And even though I can write the contract, I know the closing timeline in and out because, again, done thousands of closings over the years, but I still choose to use an agent. And that's because I do not have time to become the project manager of my transaction. Maybe if I had a little bit more time on my plate, I would consider it, but it's just not my reality at the moment. And I understand the value that an agent can bring in helping with comps and putting together a good offer. And that's just time and effort and studying that I'm not willing to do at this point in my life. So I see the value in having an agent and understanding what they bring to the table. And while some buyers may be reluctant, I think some of that has to do with education and kind of spicy headlines. But when you dig down into it, you can see how a buyer and agent can work together effectively to get you to the closing table and do so smoothly. So if you are wanting to learn more about real estate law and the closing process in general, YouTube recommends you watch this video.